bit difficult and is a first for me because ever since I can remember, I've wanted to be invisible. Growing up, a sensitive child in a toxic environment, I absorbed a lot of different energies, so much so to the point where I had to eventually shut myself down in order to survive. Of I think the 12 years of me providing healing work, I've never put myself out on Front Street, but that changes today because I recognize that there's a shift that's happening. I recognize that there's an absolute necessity for the services that I uniquely provide, and I would be practicing ahimsa, right, or theft if I kept it all for myself. So the purpose of this video, like I said, was to introduce me, my philosophies, my principles, and the tenets that I live by, and also to introduce you to the modalities that I work with and then the offerings that I have. So my qualifications stem from 3 different paths that I told would never mesh and will always cancel each other out. That's psychology, dance, and spiritualism. My entire life thus far has been a single act of liberation. Finding ways that these 3 paths can meld together in a way that is efficient and in a way that is meaningful, that is applied both for myself and for the people who are receiving. So I'm gonna break things down, starting with movement, then I'll move into psychology, then I'll move into spiritualism, and then I'll tell you kind of how all 3 of those modalities blend together for me. Not even blending, how those modalities work together for the things that I do. One of the most, pleasurable memories of my childhood was when my mom, in one of her sober moments, took me to go see Bob Fosse on Broadway. It took all but 3 minutes for me to be on the edge of my seat, looking in awe at this production. It was filled with excitement, and I was filled with pain. Pain coming from the frustration and the absolute and utter envy that I had that I wasn't on stage with the rest of those dancers. So that kind of ignited me, and I've never turned back from there. That's been my passion since that very moment. I just wanted to get on stage. My mom took me to an adult professional jazz dance class at what was called Hubbard Street Dance. Not sure if it's still in New York now. This is in Manhattan. And I was 12 at the time. And she decided to take me to Hubbard Street Dance and throw me in this professional dance class of people who were around like my age now. Needless to say, I came out of that dance class in tears, sobbing. And the other dancers, that were in the class, they came out and they consoled me and, told my mom that, man, if she can make it through a professional dance class like this at 12, then she should probably keep at it and see where it takes her. My mom was clever because she was able to create a win and also kind of like a loss or a make it or break it moment when I decided wholeheartedly to marry art. Since I didn't have any way, my mom or anybody didn't have any way to put me in formal training at the time, I took what was there for me, and at that point it was theater in middle school, and it changed my life. Mr. Robinson changed my life. Be very nice, very kind, and very appreciative of professional artists who choose to teach kids, especially in middle school. You don't know how many lives they've saved. When I was able to get up out of my environment and actually go away to college, I was, felt the pressure of people saying, well, you need to do something like law or medicine or, these sorts of things that are, gonna make you money. And I thought to myself, I am in this environment for the first time ever where I can do and be anything that I want. I couldn't run fast enough to the dance department. And that is where being the only Black dancer, the only Black student for all 4 years of my experience, I found out who I was as a person. Not only did I learn about movement from a performance base, I also learned about movement from an academic base. I learned about movement from a physics base, from a scientific base, and I was able to then use that to create alchemy within my body to transform and to heal, to gut out some of the experiences that I've had in my childhood, so that way I can really be free to soar and that I wouldn't have those limitations. I started to kind of try out things, little, experiments here and there on myself, and realized that they were working. And then I started to create this sort of philosophy, this sort of practice, life practice over time that really was a benefit and has had a significant part of who I am today. My senior year of college, I was able to perform with Ananya Chatterjee, with Ananya Dance Theater, and Ananya taught me something that was invaluable and that has carried me all the way until now. So, very long time. Ananya taught me the value of art for social justice. She taught me that when you build yourself up, and then you are able as a collective to build yourselves up, you have this voice, and art is this transmitter that is able to communicate and to project and to share and to cultivate something that cannot be killed, something that cannot be oppressed, maybe diluted sometimes, if allowed. And it empowered me in a way that I never felt empowered before. It empowered me as an artist. It gave me a way to stand up and say, no, I am doing something meaningful. I am practicing medicine. Later, we'll talk about that later. I was about to get on my soapbox. Y'all saw that? All right, I'll take a step down. All right, let me get through it. So that's the healing modality that I use of movement. And yeah, I have tons of qualifications, and I study under some really great people, right? But you can read that in a resume, you can read that in the bio. So with psychology, man, it all started for me with this thing I used to play by myself called the why game, where I would put a situation, circumstance, person, a feeling in front of me, and I would ask the question why until I couldn't ask it anymore. This gave me a tool that I developed called insight, to be able to understand how all the pieces fit together in sort of a bird's eye view, and then to zoom in on my piece and see what parts I have control over, what I don't, and how I can maneuver in the situation. This was strictly for survival purposes. I needed it to survive on a daily basis from the age of 8 all the way up until 18. So that was a daily basis. That's what was helping me to function, helping me to manipulate my surroundings to my survival benefit. And it wasn't until I got to take AP psychology in high school where it started to click to me, and I'm like, oh, that person acts like this, does this, and I kind of really understood things from a perspective that I didn't have access to before. And I was like, man, I don't know what that is, but as soon as I get to college, if I ever get to college, I'm doing that. So as soon as I got to college my freshman year, I declared psychology major, because it wasn't from a standpoint of getting a GPA. It wasn't from a standpoint of doing this career, doing this job. It was a standpoint of, I need this for my healing and of myself and for my healing of my family. And I noticed that when I was taking the classes and when I was reading those books, I was able to immediately apply what I've learned in the books to my internal life and my inner space, and then also how I interacted with the people who surrounded me, with the people, my loved ones, the people in my area. And this was priceless. This is still very, very, very priceless. And then as time went on, I was able to hone that craft a lot more, going into graduate school at the University of Texas at Austin. Didn't learn really much in terms of academics from that graduate degree, but I did learn a lot about myself, in the sense that I learned that psychology is meant to be applied. When I got into that ivory tower, I looked around and I'm reading all this good, juicy stuff. I mean, I can't wait to do this e-course on all the things about psychology, right? So I learned all these things. And I looked around and all the people, were reading these articles and were having these intense discussions. And I thought to myself, you know what's sad? The people who need this information don't have access to it because they don't even know what JSTOR is. They don't have subscription to these journals. This stuff is not necessarily in the public library, not to the extent of the detailed articles that we were reading in classes. And this is when I realized that I needed to apply. Apply. I had to figure out a way to take all the things that I learned, all that jargon, all that stuff, strip it down to its bare bones and deliver it to people in an accessible and useful in the way you can use it, right? Way. So backtrack, when I was in college, I'm sopping up all of this information in psychology. I'm just going for it. I'm doing all these studies and researching things about like interracial interactions, about different forms of identity and blackness and in whiteness and all this sort of things inside the body experiences, socioeconomic experiences, and I'm dancing, right? And I'm learning about like these modalities of dance at the same time. Talk about a mind blow. I was able to figure out how the mind and the body start to communicate to one another and really start to think about how we use the body to restructure the mind and how we can have the mind feed into the body. So I played with it. I did different things. I created dances, and when I realized is that those dances that I created tended to be cathartic things, and when I would perform them at the school concerts or things like that, I realized that people were releasing in the audience with me. They were breathing with me, and I always thought, man, my technique wasn't on. I'm sitting there analyzing, but then people kept on coming up to me and saying, do you know what that did for me? Do you know how that moved me? And I thought to myself, well, maybe it isn't about how many more degrees I can get my leg in the air, the extinction. Maybe it isn't about how many turns I can put into that multiple. Maybe it isn't about, how well my foot was pointed. Although those things I love so much and I care a lot about and I put a lot of intention into, I realized that there's this whole other world that needed to be opened up for others. Eventually though, I left UT, left academia, and I went instead to figure out how I can apply this immediately. And I went to charter school in East Austin, all-black charter school in East Austin, and I taught dance. And in this charter school, I was able to teach how I wanted to. I'm really blessed for that. And I taught dance in a way that taught identity, taught culture, taught mindfulness, taught all those things. This is back in 2009, 2010, when this stuff was kind of catching on, but wasn't really trendy yet, right? So a lot of people were looking at me like I was crazy. But one thing that I could say, and one thing that they could say, is that those kids were very different based on whether or not they took my class. So this was being seen, and so I thought to myself, you know what? I can do this on the class level. What would happen if I could create this world, right? Creating these worlds that people have access to for healing. So this fine arts department was created. Very beautiful fine arts department created of music, of dance, of theater. And these students flourished. They flourished because for the first time they were able to see themselves, not only in their teachers, not only in what we were teaching, not only in artists, not celebrities that they can look up to, all these sorts of things. It was a really beautiful experience. And I thought to myself again, well, if I can do that on that level, what happens if I pushed it and I went out into the community and I only dealt with children, but I dealt with adults in the same, vein, with the same modalities? What would happen then? That psychology and dance, there couldn't be a better marriage until, spirituality came into play. Now this one knocked me over the side of the head. I wasn't looking for this. I don't know. I wasn't searching for it. Didn't know anything about it. I've been around it all my life and didn't realize that I was. But it found me. It found me. My ability to be in a space where I can sense other people's feelings in a very resound and very tangible way has served me well, and to be tapped in and tuned into the universe in a clear way has not only amplified the two modalities of dance and psychology, but it has given it depth in a way that I could have never imagined. It's hard for me to say, but I challenge myself in coming out as my full self, right? So I am what is called clairsentient. It is people who can sense the energies that are around. I sense it in my body because I am body focused. Other people might sense it in hearing, other people might sense it in seeing, other people might sense it through dreaming, things of this nature. I sense it in bodies. So I'm able to work with somebody with their body, and it just amplifies what I know scientifically about the body, and it amplifies what I know psychologically about the mind, and I'm able to sense where people hold different things in their bodies and how to release them. And I have a couple of testimonies coming behind this for people to talk to you about it, because I think it would just be easier for somebody else to say how it worked for them and their own body than me telling you this stuff. And you might think, oh, it's all woo-woo or whatever, but it is wonderful, it is useful, it is calculating, it is beautiful. And I'm definitely guided by that. Definitely guided by spirit, guided by ancestral realm, and I'm guided by my hands. So how does that all come together, right? Well, I would call myself a body alchemist. At the heart of it all, I am an alchemist. I am able to maneuver, capture, and release energy in ways that are functional for the health and well-being of individuals, of groups, of communities, and of spaces, physical spaces. I can do that in different kinds of ways. Some of the offerings that I have, you have different access points, right? Talk a lot about access points nowadays. It's like a new phrase. And we have different access points. So some of those access points, the most general access point would be this right now, right? Watching some videos, and I'll post up a couple of videos, and on Fridays I do have something that's called It's Friday. It's Friday, y'all, and you know, got a little theme song to it, and every Friday I'll post just a snippet of a story that explains, I don't know, a train of thought or something like that that's helpful. Just a tidbit, bite size. The next step would be watching these YouTube videos. So please like my channel and subscribe. Share it if you love it. Share it if you think other people can benefit from it. You want to know about the benefits of movement in everyday life? Sign up for that. If you want to understand how to hone your skills as a dancer, excuse me, or if you just want to know about dance in general, you're curious, sign up. Dance from the internal space. If you want to know about psychology and how to rework some neural pathways in your mind using movement, sign up for an e-course. If you want to know about how to live a mindful life using what I use, my tenets and my spirituality, my spiritual pathway, my energetic pathway, totally sign up for that e-course. There'll be a couple of offerings for you there. And if you want to get into some deeper work, I offer private sessions via video or in person. And if you kind of want to get into the work, but like a kind of group setting, come take a class. You can visit sadeism.com. That's sadeism.com to go ahead and sign up for any one of those offerings. I love you so much, and I appreciate you taking the time. Be well and be moved.